So as many of you know, we recently ordered a new RV, a new Grand Design, and it's time to start making the preps to transition over to that rig. Now, we're not going to pick it up until probably the middle of December, but there are some things that we've got to do to get ready for that. And then if you guys have been watching for a while, you know that a little while back, I kind of made some changes to my electrical system where I installed a manual transfer switch that allowed me to switch back and forth between shore power, normal shore power, and my portable power station. So today is the first step in getting ready to transition into that new rig. I'm going to be basically emptying out the pass through here, and I'm going to get back there. I'm going to take that switch out and I'm going to route that shore power cable back to its original location, which goes to the back of the breaker panel. So that's what I'm going to do today. Thought I'd bring you guys along for a little bit of this ride, just in case you're interested. I never really showed how I did this when I hooked it up. When I connected everything, it was cold outside and I just didn't have the right setup or the time to really do the recording, so I didn't get that recorded. But you're gonna see it here in reverse, and I'm just gonna go ahead and get started on this. All right, so I've got the pass-through cleaned out a little bit here, just enough for me to be able to maneuver around and do what I need to do. So as you can see up here, right, this is where I installed my manual transfer switch to switch back and forth between shore power and my power station. And basically, if you remember what I did here is I just rerouted the shore power cable that comes into the main breaker box inside, and I rerouted that to the switch here. I also routed the cable from the power station into that switch, and then that switch just runs into the main electrical box inside. So basically what I've got to do now is remove that shore power connection from inside of that switch and just route it back over to the breaker box inside. So first I'm just going to take this wall off and just kind of have a peek around back there to kind of see what's going on. I haven't been back there in a while, so not sure if I'm going to find anything interesting or not. Okay, so got that wall off, and as you can see back here, this is where I've made all of my connections here and over here, and that's what runs into the back of that switch. So I just got to take that all apart and then run it back over to the main breaker. And then of course I'll have to go into the switch here and go ahead and just disconnect everything in there, take that switch apart and get it unmounted from the pass-through, because I think I may still use it in the new rig. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that whole thing is going to look like as far as, you know, what's behind the wall here, where I'm going to make all those connections and so forth. But I do want to take it with me just because I want to have that option if I need it. And then of course the first thing you always want to do when you're working on anything electrical is you always want to turn the power off. So that's what I'm going to go do. I'm just going to flip the breaker for the RV itself. I don't have my power stations connected up at all, so I don't have to worry about those, but I do definitely need to get the shore power shut off to the rig so that I don't electrocute myself. Okay, and then because I'm a little bit of a nut about safety and I really don't want to get shocked, not again! I'm just going to go ahead and disconnect the cable as well. You never know who's going to be going around behind you shutting breakers. Trust me, that's happened before, even at home. So I'm just going to go ahead and disconnect this because I can actually keep an eye on this from the pass-through. I can see this from the pass-through. That way I know that nobody's going to re-energize anything on me. So I've got this disconnected, and as I always do, whenever I disconnect or connect, I'm always looking at my connection points, and it looks like we've had a little bit of heat damage here on this cable. Now this is just a cable extension. This is a 25-foot cable extension to reach up to the house. And I can see right here, it's gotten kind of warm. It's actually bulged out just a little bit right along this pin right here. And I can see some discoloration on the side. Now, when I unplugged it, it wasn't warm or hot or anything like that, but I'm not using much power right now. But I can tell that this has gotten a little warm at some point. So I'm actually going to go through here and I'm going to check the other connection points along the way. I'm going to check where I've got this one connected to my normal shore power cable, and then I'm going to check it at the rig as well, because I want to see if it's just this one connection point or maybe if there's something wrong with that line all the way down. So I'm just going to walk this down and make those checks and see what we've got. So here's my second connection point. So I'm going to pull this one apart and see what we've got inside of here. Just inside of the female part here. That looks okay. I don't see anything strange in there. And then the male section here as well, I don't see any hot spots at any place where it looks like it's gotten crispy or anything like that. So I'm hoping it was just that one connection up there. But I'm going to go back to right up to the RV to where the shore power comes into the RV, and we're going to take that apart too and see what that looks like. All right, so obviously here we are, we're at the RV itself. So I'm just gonna take this off and we're gonna see what this looks like. Okay, once again, female side here on this plug. I don't see anything out of the ordinary. Taking a quick look around in here, inside the male, inside the actual connection into the RV. I don't see anything in here either. So I'm guessing maybe I didn't have that seated very well, where my extension cable runs into the auto transformer. So I'm not going to take any chances there. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to order a new 25-foot extension cable and just replace that. And then once I get that replaced, I'll just have to go in there and make sure that they are connected up right, make sure that I don't have any kind of high resistance connection there that's gonna cause any excessive heat. Over the winter, we will still have some times when we're using a lot of electricity, using those portable space heaters and the fireplace. So I just need to make sure that that connection is good, because I certainly don't need to start a fire up there. Now, because that connection doesn't look too terrible, I think what I'm gonna do here, because I have to have this extension right now, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna disconnect both ends of that extension, and I'm gonna stick a multimeter on it and just check the resistance to make sure that it's still a good enough connection in there that I can still use it. The last thing I wanna do is get in there and read a high connection from one end to the other, because then I really won't wanna plug it back in. So I'll just do that real quick to make sure that I can safely use this until I can get a new one. So what I'm gonna do here, like I said, is I'm just gonna check the resistance. So this is both ends of that extension cable, and I'm just gonna check the resistance from one end to the other. And yeah, I know I'm just using a cheap old, multimeter for this. I don't have the real fancy equipment out there, but I know at least one of you guys out there, and I won't use any names, is gonna say, yeah, but you should. But, okay, yeah, I get it, but this is the best I've got. This is what I've got to work with, and this is what we're gonna do here. So, and it ought to give me just a fairly decent idea of whether or not I can continue to use this cable. All right, so what I'm seeing down there is about 0.1, maybe 0.2 ohms on all of those connections. So I think it's still pretty good. Makes me feel better until I can get a new one on order and have it shipped out. So I think that's all the checks I'm gonna do. And when I'm all done here, I'll just go ahead and connect everything back up. All right, well, we got that resolved, at least for now, temporarily, until I can get a new cable on order. But I did want to get back in here. I want to get this stuff disconnected in here, get everything wired back up the way that it should be, because even though we've got a nice day today, the weather is turning cold, and I don't want to be out here doing this when it's below freezing. So let's get started on this again. So what we're going to do here and start with is just the main power coming from what should be shore power. I want to get that disconnected and routed back and go ahead and connect it up to the breaker box. That way I can get power on. It's about 2:30 here, and even though it's kind of warm right now, it's going to start to cool off probably here in the next hour, hour and a half. So I want to get all of that connected back up so that I can go ahead and get power back onto the rig, and then hopefully I can get the rest of this done today. But if not, then I can just do it as I can fit it in my schedule without having to turn power off again. So these are just some molded connectors that I found at Lowe's that worked really well. I think they're going to come apart with the Allen's wrench set here. Can't really remember what size they are, but these worked out really well, allowing me to tie everything together in a nice secure location that's insulated, and I don't have to worry about anything getting in there to create any problems for me. And they even come preloaded with some dielectric grease in there too, so that was kind of nice. Overall, these connections were just really easy to work with. They were fairly cheap, and they did exactly what I needed them to do. And worked out pretty well. I'm not seeing any discoloration here other than just what that grease has done to the wire sheathing here. So these insulated junctions that I bought here, right, they were really just for the neutrals and the grounds to tie them all together. Obviously, you don't want to be tying different hot sources or hot leads together because that's going to really create some issues for you. But they did the job on being able to tie together all of my grounds and my return lines. These still look good, no signs of overheating, so all these connections that I made seem to work out pretty well, the materials that I used. So this is the main line that comes from the shore power, the actual shore power that comes into the side of the rig, and I just need to route this back over to the back of the breaker box. But first, I gotta go open up the breaker box so that I can pull it through. All right, so now we're inside at the breaker box, and all we're really gonna do here is we're gonna take the cover off. We're gonna take the faceplate off of it so that I can actually remove that breaker box a little bit, and we're gonna disconnect the two hot leads and the ground and the return wires because those are actually coming from the manual transfer switch, and we want to get the shore power cable coming into the back of the breaker box. So we'll have to disconnect all four of those lines, and then we'll have to route that shore power breaker back up here to the breaker box. All right, so what we've got here is we have the two hot leads coming in right to my main breakers here, 150 amp breaker for each side of the rig. And then the return line or the neutral line is here, this white one. And then we have the ground coming to the ground bus bar in the back. So all I'm gonna do is just remove the hot leads from the breaker, remove these two leads here, and then I'll be able to pull the whole cable back out into the pass-through area. Okay, one more step here is we got to remove the 4 screws that actually hold the whole panel in place. Now, one thing to keep in mind if you're ever in this box like this is you have 2 separate parts, right? You have your AC components, all your AC section here with all your circuit breakers, but you also have your DC components on this side. So you've got your fuse box on this side and your breakers over here. Now, the DC side of this is still live, so just keep that in mind. You wouldn't want to put anything in here. You wouldn't want to short across those 2 bus bars there because they are still live, and you'll get a huge surprise. Okay, so there's my cables that are coming from my manual transfer switch, and I'm just going to pull those back out through the pass-through and then feed the shore power cable up here. Okay, now we're back here in the pass-through again, and you can see the light coming through right up in there. That's where I disconnected everything inside of the main breaker box, and that's where we're going to route that cable up to. So first, I'm just going to pull out the cable coming from the manual transfer switch here. Easy enough. Now getting this back up there might be a little bit, it shouldn't be too bad. It's pretty open in there. All right, well, aside from getting poked with a nail, that was pretty easy. So now I'm just gonna go around and pull it the rest of the way through. Okay, back inside, I'm gonna just set this camera down and kind of show you where that cable is back behind the breaker box. This cable right here. Here we go. We've got our 2 hots, our return or our common, and our ground. All right, so we're just gonna pull that through here, back underneath where the other cables came out. Okay, all that's left to be done in here is to just remake these connections, and then we should be able to turn the power back on to the rest of the rig. Now, I don't know what it is with electricians that do this type of work, installations and so forth, but they like to give you no extra room to work with. So this might be a little bit of a battle here, because these are just barely gonna come up here and fit into the bottom side of these breakers where I need to connect them to. And like I said before, these wires are so stiff that they're really hard to manipulate. But if you're an electrician out there that does this type of work, do us all a favor. Just give us a little bit of room to work with. All right, so for the hot leads, what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna just take these breakers out, and I'm gonna connect the wires up to them with the breakers out, because it's just a lot easier than trying to jam them up from underneath. So these breakers should just pop right out, should be pretty simple. There we go, fairly straightforward. That breaker just pops right out, and now we can easily get these, well, I say easily. All right, got both cables on there. Now we just need to get this back in place. Easier said than done sometimes. All right guys, so that's gonna do it at the breaker panel for the most part. I'm just gonna pop the cover back on here. Then I'm gonna go out, I'll hook up the shore power cable again, and then I'll reshut the main breaker, and then I'll come back in here. I will reshut the main breaker inside of the RV itself. And I just wanna make sure that I don't hear or see anything weird, but we should be good to go there, and we'll get it tested and get power back onto the rig. It's always a good sign when the breakers stay shut. As you can see, my watchdog is good to go, telling me power is all good. All right, we're just gonna reshut the main breaker here, and everything should come back on. There we go. So that's it, guys. I kind of fast forwarded there on you. I went ahead and pulled everything else out of there. If there was any part of this video that you're gonna be interested in, I promise you it wasn't that. I got Wicked out here with me, and he's gonna help me put all of this away. This is always the fun part, cleaning up from your mess. But anyway, that's it. You know, hopefully you got something out of this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you get notified of all of our videos in the future. And until then, as always, happy camping and stay safe out there.